They tell you that you lose a confrontation when someone outsmarts you. That's wrong. You lose the moment you panic. The second your voice jumps a little higher, your words start tripping over each other. Your chest tightens and your breathing gets shallow. The outcome is already decided. On the surface, you're still in it, but internally you've surrendered the one thing that matters in conflict: control. Because panic isn't just a reaction. Panic is a confession. It silently announces to everyone in the room, my emotions are in charge now. I'm no longer driving. People feel it instantly. They might not be able to explain why, but they can sense the shift. The tremor in your tone, the restless fidgeting, the way your timing falls apart. Those are not random nerves. Those are white flags. And here's the worst part. You can still be right and still lose. You can have the better argument, the clearer facts, the moral high ground, and walk away knowing you got crushed anyway. Why? Because you didn't lose the logic. You lost your composure. You lost yourself. And the other person, the one who stayed quiet while you burned, who watched you unravel and barely had to lift a finger, that's the one who wins. Not because they were smarter, not because they were kinder, but because they stayed calm. Understand this. Calm is not peace. Calm is disguised dominance. It's the ability to turn emotion into information, to turn noise into openings, to turn chaos into a stage where you dictate the tempo without anyone realizing it. When everyone else is scrambling for control, the calm person already owns it. That's the first Machiavellian law of confrontation. The one who remains still controls the storm. Machiavelli understood that true power doesn't show itself in rage. Anyone can shout. Anyone can slam a door. Anyone can snap when pushed far enough. But the ruler who smiles under pressure, the man who doesn't flinch when insulted, the person who cannot be provoked, that is the person you cannot control. Calm isn't softness, it's supremacy. The calm man controls the speed of the conversation, the tone, the timing of every pause. He controls not just what is said, but the feeling in the room. People inhale and exhale unconsciously on his rhythm. They talk more when he goes quiet. They fall apart while he barely moves. He doesn't overpower people. He unbalances them. At first, they mistake his stillness for passivity. They think he's losing. They think he's scared. And then, slowly, they realize they're the ones spilling too many words, revealing too much, getting more emotional with each sentence. That's when fear creeps in. Because the calm man is not fighting for control. He simply never hands it over. So the question is no longer, how do I win arguments? The real question is, how do I stay so calm that winning becomes automatic? By the end of this series of laws, that's where we're heading. But it starts here. Law 1. The first victory is over yourself. Before you conquer anyone across the table, you have to conquer the chaos inside your own chest. Most people walk into confrontation thinking the problem is out there, in the other person's tone, in their words, in their disrespect. But Machiavelli would point you somewhere else. The real enemy lives in your own reactions, the racing thoughts, the pounding heart, the heat in your face that makes you want to talk faster, louder, harder. The battle is not against their will. It's against your own impulses. A man who cannot rule his emotions cannot rule anything else. Because once your emotions sit on the throne, reason gets exiled. And when reason goes, strategy dies with it. You don't build composure in the fire. You forge it before the fire. Think like a general. The general doesn't design plans in the middle of the battlefield. He prepares in silence, long before the first shot is fired. He drills discipline until calm is not a choice, It's a reflex. You have to do the same with your mind. You start studying your own reactions like a scientist. When do you talk too fast? Who triggers your pride? What kind of comments make your chest tighten, your throat dry, your brain go blank? Those are not random moments. Those are patterns. And once you see the pattern, you can break it. Every insult that used to send you into a spiral becomes a test. Every provocation becomes a mirror showing you, here, this is where you still have strings they can pull. Emotion is not the enemy. Emotion is leverage if it's yours. Anger, when steered, becomes focus. Fear, when understood, becomes caution. Adrenaline, when directed, becomes precision. But when emotion directs you, it burns everything. You become the puppet tied to your own strings. The man who masters calm doesn't pretend he doesn't feel. He just refuses to be owned by what he feels. He takes that same wild energy that wrecks other people and converts it into timing, patience, and surgical action. That's why Machiavelli compared ruling others to ruling yourself. In both cases, you have to understand the nature of what you govern. You have to know when you rush into defending yourself too quickly, when your ego jumps in and wants to fix how you look, when your nerves start writing checks your mind can't cash. And then you do the opposite. Where you used to rush, you wait. Where you used to argue, you observe. Where you used to defend yourself, you ask questions instead. Calm is built through inversion, by starving the chaos instead of feeding it. Remember, the man who loses his temper is never as scary as he thinks. He's not powerful. He's predictable. You can get him to talk before he thinks. You can push him into revealing secrets he meant to hide. You can make him act against his own interests just by poking the right nerve. He is not a threat. He's a remote-controlled device operated by his emotions. The calm man is the opposite. He is a mirror. He reflects everything, absorbs nothing. You can't read him. You can't provoke him. You can't force him to show more than he wants to show. And that's what unnerves people. The silence they can't break. The stillness they can't shake. Calm does not mean emptiness. It means ownership. It's not that you feel nothing. It's that nothing owns you. And when you reach that point, confrontation stops being chaos. It becomes choreography, a series of moves you can see coming before they're made. The first real victory in any clash isn't over the other person. It's over yourself. Because once you command yourself, you command the situation. You become the one stable point in a room full of emotional earthquakes. And when you've built that foundation, you're ready for the next weapon. Not more words, not more force, but something far more unsettling. Silence. Silence is one of the most misunderstood forces in human behavior. Most people think silence is a retreat, a surrender, a sign that they're losing the argument. They panic the moment a conversation goes quiet. They rush to fill the air with explanations, defenses, justifications, anything to make the discomfort disappear. But Machiavelli saw something very different. He understood that silence isn't absence. Silence is pressure, and pressure is power. In a confrontation, silence is not passive. Silence is a weapon. When you fall silent, the other person doesn't calm down, they unravel. They start talking faster, talking louder, revealing more than they planned, confessing things they meant to hide. They interpret your silence as judgment or superiority or hidden anger. And the more they try to fix that silence, the more noise they create. Noise that exposes them. Noise that reveals their insecurities. Noise that hands you leverage without you lifting a finger. People are addicted to sound. They think control belongs to the loudest voice. But in every argument, every negotiation, every tense moment, the one who talks most is the one losing control. The one who listens. The one who waits. the one who stays still. He's gathering ammunition. Machiavelli advised rulers to speak little and observe much for one reason. A prince who talks too much becomes predictable. A prince who listens becomes dangerous. The same is true in your daily battles. Let them talk. Let them fill the air with emotional clutter. Let them explain themselves without being asked. The more they speak, the more they expose the cracks in their confidence. They might start to overjustify themselves, or repeat the same point again and again, or accidentally reveal the insecurity behind their anger. Silence doesn't make you weak. Silence makes them loud, and the louder they get, the more unbalanced they become. Here's where the real Machiavellian magic happens. Silence turns their imagination against them. When you go quiet, they aren't hearing you. They're hearing their own fears echo back at them. They start assuming what you're thinking. They start building stories in their mind. Maybe you're offended. Maybe you're angry. Maybe you're planning something. Maybe you no longer respect them. And imagination always paints something scarier than reality. That's why silence must be deliberate. Not hesitant, not nervous. Deliberate. Your face calm. Your eyes steady. No fidgeting, no forced expression, no rushed breath. Just stillness. And in that stillness, they start negotiating with a version of you inside their own mind. A version that is far more intimidating than anything you could say out loud. Silence does what force cannot. It makes them collapse under the weight of their own noise. This is the mask of silence, one of Machiavelli's most powerful psychological weapons. It protects your emotions and exposes theirs. It keeps you unreadable and makes them transparent. It allows you to win without raising your voice, without losing your composure, without revealing your hand. When you choose not to speak, you're sending a message. I will not dance to your tempo. You will dance to mine. And here's the beautiful part. The moment you finally decide to speak, your words hit like a verdict. They sound decisive, measured, heavy with meaning. Even simple phrases like, I see. Go on. Is that what you think? I understand. Can shatter all the emotional momentum they thought they had, because you didn't argue. You let them argue with themselves. Law 3. The breath of command, controlling your body, ruling the room. Before your mind loses control, your body does. You don't notice it at first. Your heart rate jumps, your breath shortens, your voice gets thinner, your muscles tighten. But others feel it instantly, even before you say a word. They can sense the tension leaking through your body language. This is why Machiavelli said mastery over others begins with mastery over yourself. Power doesn't start with the mind. Power starts with breath. Breath is the bridge between your inner world and the outer one. Panic makes your breath fast. Fear makes it shallow. Anger makes it rapid. Each one is an involuntary confession. Your body is shouting what you're trying to hide. Every ruler, every general, every strategist who understood power understood stillness. Because stillness is not just emotional control, it's biological control. When your breathing is slow and deep, your voice naturally gets calmer. Your tone becomes steadier. Your rhythm stabilizes. Your thinking sharpens. People around you start matching your rhythm without even realizing it. Their breathing unconsciously syncs to yours. Their tone adjusts. Their pace slows. You anchor the entire room. That is not mysticism. That is nervous system dominance. In every confrontation, there is an invisible contest. Who sets the pace? The one breathing fast is following. The one breathing slow is leading. This is what Machiavelli meant when he said, "Fortune favors those who command themselves first." Breath is command made visible. It's your internal metronome that dictates the tempo of every interaction. When your pulse rises, slow your breath. When your mind races, breathe deeper. When someone shouts, inhale long and steady. Let your breath shield you. Do this in your quiet moments. Train it before you need it. Because crisis reveals who has discipline and who only pretends to. In the middle of conflict, your instincts will betray you unless you've trained them beforehand. Orators pause before speaking. Generals stand still under fire. Kings take long breaths before judgment. Breath gives distance from chaos. Distance gives clarity. Clarity gives control. When you breathe like a king, you begin to think like one. Each inhale whispers, I am still in command. Each exhale declares, this moment does not own me. The man who controls his breath in chaos becomes untouchable. When others are gasping, you are dictating the air. And when you dictate the air, you dictate everything. Every confrontation, no matter how small, begins long before the first word is spoken. It begins the moment two pairs of eyes meet. Because before anyone listens to your argument, before they judge your logic, before they weigh your tone, they read your eyes. And most people don't even realize that their eyes are betraying them long before their mouth ever does. Eyes dart when someone is uncertain. They blink faster when they're afraid. They shift downward when challenged. And in that moment, that tiny, unguarded moment, the opponent sees everything. Your hesitation, your insecurity, your self-doubt. The reality is simple. The stare decides dominance more than the speech. Machiavelli understood this deeply. In the courts of Florence, where political games were constant, people lied with their mouths but told the truth with their gaze. Princes bluffed. Spies whispered. Generals pretended to be calm. But no one kept the same eyes under pressure unless they had true composure. That's why Machiavelli prized the one quality that cannot be faked for long: stillness under scrutiny. This is where the predator's stare comes in. Now, let's be clear, the predator's stare is not about glaring, aggression, or intimidation. That's what amateurs do. That kind of stare gives away more than it hides. The real predator's stare is something else entirely. Stillness. Focus. A quiet, unbroken presence that says, I see you, I understand you. I will act when I choose, not when you demand. Most people cannot handle being truly looked at. It strips away their comfort. It magnifies every insecurity they're trying to hide. It forces them to face their own reflection in your silence. Hold that gaze calm, steady, relaxed, and you'll notice something remarkable. You stay still, but they start to crumble. Their voice rises. Their gestures get bigger. Their sentences get longer and faster. They start trying harder to impress, defend, explain, justify. Every second you remain calm, they lose more rhythm. Your silence becomes psychological gravity. The longer they orbit it, the more unstable they become. But here's the key. The stare must be pure. If your eyes tremble with anger, you lose the power. If your stare burns with arrogance, you lose it. If you try too hard to look tough, you reveal insecurity. True command comes from absence, the absence of emotional reaction. When your eyes communicate that nothing they do can shake you, the confrontation stops being two people facing each other and becomes one person confronting themselves. This is why interrogators throughout history broke men without touching them, why leaders could silence a room with a glance, why warriors knew who would win a duel before swords were even drawn. Before words, before movement, before strategy, the gaze decides the psychological terrain. To master the predator's stare, you must practice detachment. Don't look at the person as an opponent. Don't look at them as someone to beat. Don't look at them as someone who can wound you. Look at them as a pattern, a behavior, a sequence of emotions unfolding in real time. Observe without absorbing. See without reacting. When you do this, the fear goes away. The ego goes silent. The need to win fades, and what remains is pure clarity. Because the man who cannot meet your eyes, the one who looks away first, who fidgets, who breaks the stare, always knows deep down that he has already lost the psychological battle. Words haven't even started yet. Law 5. The slow reply, turning timing into power. In every confrontation, there is a hidden rhythm that decides who leads and who follows. And most people, without knowing it, give that rhythm away. They respond too quickly. They rush into explaining themselves. They try to fix the silence. They try to prove something they don't need to prove. And Machiavelli saw this mistake everywhere in rulers, in soldiers, in politicians. A single insult would make them panic. One challenge and their pride would explode. Their instinct to defend themselves instantly exposed their insecurity. The slow reply is the antidote to all of that. The slow reply is not hesitation. It is patience sharpened into a psychological blade. Here's the truth. Speed looks insecure. Slowness looks in control. When someone says something confrontational and you respond instantly, you expose your anxiety. You show that their words touched you. You reveal that you're trying to stop the bleeding before anyone notices. But when you pause, when you breathe, when you let the silence expand for just a moment longer, everything changes. Your stillness becomes the center of gravity. The other person suddenly becomes the one waiting, wondering, guessing, projecting. They'll start imagining what you're thinking. Is he offended? Is he angry? Is he planning something? Why isn't he reacting? Their mind becomes your ally, and when you finally speak slowly, calmly, deliberately, the weight of your words multiplies. Your sentence lands with authority, even if it's just something simple like, I hear you. I understand. Is that so? Because the timing, not the vocabulary, delivers the power. Try it in real life. When accused, wait. When insulted, wait. When challenged, wait. Not too long, not artificially. Just long enough for them to feel the imbalance. Long enough to break their rhythm. Long enough for them to hear their own emotion echo in the silence you created. When people repeat themselves, it's because your silence made them insecure. When they talk faster, it's because they lost tempo. When they over-explain, it's because they're unraveling. And you didn't do anything but stay still. This is the rule of tempo Machiavelli loved. Never move at the rhythm of your enemy. Make them move at yours. Because in conflict, time is a weapon. The one who controls time controls perception, and the one who controls perception controls everything. Every confrontation is an exchange of energy. Most people either absorb that energy or attack it head-on. When someone gets angry, they get angry back. When someone raises their voice, they match the volume. When someone pushes, they push harder. And that's exactly why most people lose. Because the moment you react to someone else's emotion, you've already surrendered control. You've stepped into their world, their tempo, their rules. You're no longer leading the confrontation. You're participating in their performance. The Machiavellian mind does something completely different. It reflects. It becomes a psychological mirror, perfectly calm, perfectly still, showing the other person their own emotion without absorbing any of it. When they raise their voice, you don't. When they accuse, you don't defend. When they flail emotionally, you remain centered. And little by little, their own behavior starts to sound ridiculous to them. This is the secret power of the mirror. People cannot stand seeing themselves clearly. Most egos depend on distortion, a little exaggeration, a little self-protection, a little story that paints them as the reasonable one. But when they shout at someone who refuses to shout back, they hear their own anger echo into the silence. When they act dramatic and you remain neutral, the contrast exposes the absurdity of their performance. The mirror turns their emotion against them. They start repeating themselves. They start over-explaining. They start apologizing for things you never mentioned. They crack under the weight of their own noise, and the entire time you do nothing except remain calm. Machiavelli warned that resisting emotion with emotion is a fool's game. The moment you push back, you validate their fury. You feed the fire. But when you reflect it, when you stay unmoved, the fire burns itself out. Think about your own past. Remember the last time you argued with someone who stayed composed while you were losing control. Their stillness made your anger feel louder. Their calm made your frustration look childish. That experience is uncomfortable, even humiliating, because the mirror forces you to confront yourself. That's why this method works so powerfully. But the mirror only works when it is flawless. If you smirk, you break it. If your tone shifts, you break it. If you show satisfaction in their frustration, you break it. The psychological mirror must be pure neutrality, no judgment, no tension, no contempt. Just presence, just silence, just observation. You're not punishing them. You're not teaching them a lesson. You're simply refusing to participate in their emotional chaos, and without participation, their performance collapses. The goal isn't to humiliate them. The goal is to stay in complete command of yourself, because that forces them to lose command of themselves. People exhaust themselves against a calm wall. They crumble when their emotional force has nowhere to land. They walk away drained while you walk away untouched. This is why Machiavelli taught that the wisest way to win is to let others defeat themselves. You don't overpower their emotion, you expose it. You don't fight their noise, you reflect it back until it destroys its own momentum. When you master the psychological mirror, arguments stop being battles. They become collapses. You don't need to win, you let them lose. There is a level of control beyond composure, beyond silence, beyond strategy. A level so rare that most people never experience it even once in their lives. Machiavelli hinted at it, and every great leader, warrior, and thinker throughout history has touched it in some form. It's not about mastering a tactic. It's not about using a technique. It's not even about dominating a confrontation. It's about transforming the entire way you respond to the world. This final stage is what I call the eternal calm, the unprovocable state of power. Now, eternal calm is not pretending you're okay when you're furious. It's not holding your breath and forcing a smile. It's not clenching your jaw and acting like nothing affects you. That's just suppression. That's just tension dressed up as discipline. The eternal calm is something much deeper. It's when provocation no longer reaches you at all. You don't have to control your anger because it never rises. You don't have to swallow fear because it never enters. You don't have to act calm because you are calm. This is the point where the strings that once controlled you, pride, insecurity, approval, fear, finally snap. You no longer react to insults. You no longer chase validation. You no longer need to win the argument, impress the room, or prove a single thing. You stop depending on the world, and the world suddenly loses its control over you. Most people live as servants to reaction. Their entire emotional system is externally controlled. Someone frowns at them, they feel smaller. Someone mocks them, They defend. Someone challenges them. They explode. Someone praises them. They melt. They spend their whole lives being dragged around by invisible strings attached to their pride and fear. But the person who reaches eternal calm has cut those strings. He doesn't react because there is nothing inside him left to pull. He's not hiding his emotions. He's transcended them. This is what makes him invincible. When nothing can provoke you, no one can control you. When nothing scares you, no one can manipulate you. When nothing flatters you, no one can influence you. Machiavelli wrote that fortune favors the man who masters himself, because self-mastery is the rarest form of power. Most people try to control others. Few ever learn to control themselves. And the ones who do become the center of every room, not through force, but through gravity. People feel it. They sense it. They don't know why, but they know something is different. They feel steadier around you, but also slightly nervous. They feel drawn to your calm, but intimidated by your silence. They speak more carefully, listen more closely, act more respectfully. Not because you demanded it, but because your presence sets the emotional tone. This is the paradox of true power. When you stop trying to win, you can no longer lose. When you stop trying to control others, they adjust to you naturally. When you stop trying to dominate the room begins to revolve around you. You've stepped outside the game, and that's why you win it. To reach this point, you must internalize everything that came before. The silence, the breath, the stare, the slow reply, the mirror, the self-discipline. Each one removes another layer of emotional noise. Each one cuts another string of reactivity. Each one moves you closer to a state where you are no longer an emotional participant in conflict. You're the unmoving center around which everything else spins. The man of eternal calm is not avoiding the storm. He is the still point inside it. Insults hit him like pebbles thrown into an ocean, ripples that disappear instantly. Threats cannot shake him because fear requires imagination, and his imagination is not turned against him. Praise does not seduce him because his identity is no longer built on noise. He has nothing to protect, nothing to prove, nothing to fear losing. And that makes him untouchable. This is the ultimate form of Machiavellian calm. It is not endurance. It is not survival. It is not resistance. It is mastery. When the next confrontation comes, you don't rise to meet it. You let it burn out. You let it collapse under its own weight. You breathe slowly, watch carefully, and let everyone else reveal themselves. Because the calmest man in the room is always, always the most dangerous. In the end, every confrontation, every argument, every test of pride comes down to one truth. The battle is never really between you and another person. It's between you and your own reactions. The world will always try to provoke you. People will push your buttons, question your worth, test your boundaries, and pull at the strings of your ego. But none of that matters if those strings don't exist anymore. Calmness is not the absence of emotion. Calmness is ownership of emotion. It's the moment you stop being dragged by impulse and start guiding every interaction with intention. It's silence used as strategy, breath used as discipline, observation used as pressure. It's the stare that doesn't break, the patience that doesn't rush, the neutrality that doesn't give away power. And when you put all of these together, the inversion of reaction, the mirror, the slow reply, the eternal stillness, you become something rare in this world, a person who cannot be provoked, a person who doesn't lose control, because control is no longer something you perform, it's something you are. This is the kind of presence people feel before you speak, the kind of strength that doesn't need noise, The kind of power that doesn't need permission. So the next time conflict rises, don't fight it. Don't panic. Don't explain yourself into weakness. Stand still. Breathe slow. Let the noise crash and fade. Because in every room you enter, the calmest person is the one holding the real power. And now that person is you.